Welcome to New Perspectives on Integral and Transformational Learning, hosted by Auro University and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Surat and in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. It is a platform for the exploration of new perspectives in integral education, social development, integral yoga topics, and art and culture. Our aim is to facilitate presentations and interactions of different experts and researchers in diverse fields of endeavor, creating an interdisciplinary and interactive platform where all perspectives may find their true place, leading to more harmonious and comprehensive ways of living. Today is a topic dedicated to integral education. We shall discuss the importance of homeschooling, which is usually overlooked in the modern system of education. Our panel discussion and roundtable is focused on practical approaches and aspects, how to bring the aspects of integral education to children who are going to ordinary schools, which do not follow integral approach and free progress methods. For this panel discussion, we invited two speakers, Aryan and Gitanjali, his mother. I will introduce briefly these two speakers. Aryan is a freshman at New York University pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Performance Studies, Drama and Philosophy. He is also thrilled by the ideas of the logic empiricists, the mystics of the East and the West, and this synthetic confluence in the Mother and Sri Aurobindo's works. Gitanjali is a social entrepreneur and educationist. She is setting up Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, Ladakh, as its founding CEO and dean, and is also the founder of TransformIndia.com, a collective conscious action to create new social, political and economic models for India. She is a spiritual seeker and a lifelong student of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, Vedas and Upanishads, and strives to apply her learnings, gleaned from these texts, to transform the existing educational frameworks. So we shall have a discussion around 30 minutes, and the remaining 30 minutes we will open to question and answer session. So please put your questions into the question and answers box. So we will answer them at the end of this first half of our webinar. So first question is to Aryan. Aryan, you are not at home, not in Chennai, but in Calcutta now, as I know. So what are you doing there? What is your project that made you travel to Calcutta?
So at the moment, I am actually at an equestrian farm. And if I could turn my laptop and show you, there were the horses just lined up back there. So if you hear a little bit of neighing or like someone braying, then you know what it is. But I traveled here to Kolkata to film this picture, this motion picture that I had myself written. And the goal of this picture is I was the inspiration for this project, is to give a slightly meta answer to that, is in the work of an artist like Ludwig van Beethoven, let's say, he has that power in him to elevate not just the art, but some of these, abstruse artists working at the edge of their fields, but somehow elevate the taste of an entire generation of people and somehow elevate everybody's access to that kind of music once and for all. And so I believe that, a lot of the times in our own country, motion pictures are made for the lowest common kind of people. And what happens then is that because they make such bad pictures, they assume that a populace can only, enjoy not so uplifting entertainment. And so in the broadest sense, I hope that this film is able to somewhere elevate the taste of somebody somewhere, even if it's just one person, and show them mirror to the world we live in, as Stella Adler said.
All right. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea to uplift the spirit of people instead of you just entertain them and their kind of lowest kind of desires and fears. Usually that is what is being addressed in today's films. Yes, it's always a thrill, a fear, of excitement of some kind, but always on the lower level. I agree with you. We have very few films of this kind which are uplifting the spirits and giving us a new perspective on life, more fundamental, more spiritual, deeper, evolutionary perspective. So what are you working on? If it is not a secret, what is your project about? What do you want to film?
I think it was Thomas Wolfe that said that there is no art that is not autobiographical, that all art somewhere stems from your own experience. And I feel that, the great artists of the past, everybody who has ever done anything truly worthwhile, has drawn from their own experience and tried to, project their own reality to the world. And so I'm meekly following in such footsteps. But it is essentially a story of two families, specifically the relationships between two fathers and two sons. One father and son are from this higher socio-economic background, um, and the other is a fisherman in a small village, which is why I've come to this site to shoot here. It's a little village somewhere slightly far away from Calcutta, and and his daughter, and and how somehow both these relationships lack something in their understanding of one another as parent and child, and how through their interaction with each other, father with father, child with child, they move from a space of not understanding and not relating to each other to maybe still not being able to relate to each other, but giving each other that freedom to be and to exist and express each other just the way they are.
So it comes to the reconciliation, to the acceptance of differences and different approaches to life. And yeah, it's a very important subject nowadays because we are moving, as you know, into the subjective age, as Sri Aurobindo says. Yes? And in this subjective age, the acceptance of the uniqueness of each individual is very important. Thank you, Aryan. It was beautiful to know that you are filming already and interested. And I heard also that you compose your own music for it or something. Are you interested in composition of your own music for the film?
I feel that somewhere, if it's it's very much like a process of giving birth to something, making a movie, let's say. And then you want to be involved in every aspect of it, and because you want it to be just that certain way, that one note to be just somewhere that hits somebody at some point. And so I think, yes, I am very interested in composing my own music because I feel that adds so much to a film. But more than just music, I think down to which lens is being used for which shot, or where the light is being kept, just to be involved every step of the way means even if you can't consciously change something, I have this strange notion that I am giving from myself onto that set, and somehow I'm trying to just squeeze some part of myself and just sprinkle it on set so that when somebody else watches that film, they can feel that part of me lurking in that film somewhere. And
Wonderful. I remember when you were still a child, and when you started to study, piano for your first pieces, and you were playing, and then later, 1 year later, I remember you were already composing your music, and that was really very interesting to hear. These were final and very fine pieces of music, which was very surprising for me to hear that the child can compose his own music. It was great. Wonderful. And are you not afraid of pandemics. It's so kind of thriving in India nowadays, and you're just traveling through India and being in Calcutta.
So there is always that. That is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And on set, we've taken all the precautions we can. Everybody is wearing their own equipment. We sanitize regularly and so forth. And so that, in and of itself, is something that we take care of, so that we aren't stupidly, as the mother says, don't surrender your common sense. So that's not something we're doing. Um, Yet, when I was auditioning in New York in May, and I was really scared to go out in the city, mom sent me this WhatsApp message of a quotation. I think it was from Question and Answers by the mother, where I may be wrong, but that's what I can recall. Where she narrates this story of herself going through the city of Tokyo in the
Right,
middle of the
right.
pandemic, and how she catches it, and how she could feel, the viruses penetrating her subtle physical, and how she was in a very bad condition, and how she came out of it. It was very difficult. It almost like dying, she said. But she later says that if one is completely aware of one subtle physical in whatever way, and not letting these forces penetrate it, then one should be fine. And now I'm not saying I'm anywhere close to that. I'm very, very far away. But I think the only way to get better is to throw yourself in the water, down a little bit, and try to swim.
Right, right. Well, you have to be sure that it is not going to happen. You have to have this will formation, yeah, which is protecting you and not accepting it in whatever way. So, in that sense, yes, you could be well protected. And may I ask you some very general question? It's really quite interesting. What is your, how to say, aim in life? Um, how you envision your life to be?
I'm 18 now.
I guess.
If you ask me that at 8, I'd probably say I want to become a soldier. If you ask me that at 12, I'd say I want to become a chess player. But let me speak as an 18-year-old.
Right.
Um, I feel that even though I've had many successive phases of, professions that I've wanted to choose in my growing up, narrowing it down finally to something like acting or filmmaking or writing, which is still so broad, and there's still so much to be discovered. And I wouldn't be surprised if at 30 I get interested in physics and want to pursue that. But I feel that beneath all these things, for me, it is not so much the act of being the best filmmaker that drives me, or the act of being the greatest physicist that drives me, but it is seeking a perfection of the being and an expression of it in whatever one does, and moving closer to Sri Aurobindo's ideal of the supramental being. And so this is, and maybe a 3-year-old Aryan looking up and saying he wants to become supramental was a little funny. But this is something that, thanks to mom, who told me this when I remember she'd be reading the synthesis, and I'd wake up at around 7 and I'd go, and tug her pajama and say, "What are you reading?" And she'd tell me what she was reading. And I went to school, and there was this song, "I wish I was a monkey man in monkey land." And my hand went up. And I said, "No, we can't go back to monkey land. We need to evolve. We should sing, 'Let's go to Superman land.'" And so, even though maybe externally I've been, confused, not knowing what I want to do, the goal of whatever I want to do is already pre-decided. And that goal can be achieved through so many paths, or a combination of so many paths. And so somewhere in this wide array of being lost and wandering and looking around, and this very, I know, I don't know why people feel scared being lost, but I feel really happy being lost sometimes, just wandering around, not knowing where it is, yet knowing that I will get somewhere at the end of this lost walk. And so that's a very long but vague answer of what I want from my life.
Wonderful. So you want, what I gathered from your answer, that you want to collect, to gather all the facets and all the aspects of life, and in engagement with life, seeing always the way out, seeing always the possibility of growing through all the what life offers, and not being
And
afraid, and not choosing one particular path, choosing all the paths, whatever paths may come.
and most importantly, I feel that, me especially, and a lot of us sometimes, we are slightly, we take ourselves quite seriously sometimes. And so sometimes I wonder, what is the point of all creation, of everything, from some unmanifest somewhere, fathomless mute, as it should. And from there, what is the point of all this? It is ananda. It is that joy. And no matter where I'm not pursuing this goal with, some sort of heavy-handed, oh, I need to move towards. That's not what at every step this is not the ananda of cheap pleasure or debauchery. This is an ananda of pure self-expression and growth. That is the goal of it. And if I feel it once a day, and I did today when I was on set, I was profusely happy. And when I am, that's all there is. That's all I need. Because in many ways, that is the compass. If I feel I am that blissful, then I'm probably going in the right direction.
I know you quite a bit for quite some time already from your childhood, and I've seen what you have done. You have done so many different things in your life, especially not in the school when you were at home. So you did karate, you got your black belt with mama together, incredible things like gymnastics and all those things, and you were totally dedicated to those paths. I remember going with you to swimming pool where your swimming teacher, we were swimming together, and so on. And even other things like guitar playing, or Hindustani music, dance, all those things complementary for the development. Do you feel that they make sense, that they really contributed to your development and to your worldview today when you are 18?
And I'm 18. That's the big. Um, yes, definitely. And let me tell you how. My process of learning something new revolves very much around me idolizing a figure. It's so if I'm playing football, I want to play football like Messi. Act like Marlon Brando, and so forth. Compose music like Beethoven, and I was thinking recently, what is it? Do I just want to have that level of fame? Is that what is attracting me to pursuing this to the level that these people get? And then I realized, no, um, that's not it. Because I don't think the prospect of being so famous is appealing to me enough to pursue something in the first place. I feel that what all of these people at the top of their fields share, and they share something very important, is an absolute ease and mastery of what they do and an ability to enjoy it. And so, in the pursuit of these so many things, of course, modern science says, and I take that for a given, that learning multiple skills are going to help each other out, because there is no such thing as siloed discipline in the world we live in. There is no biology without chemistry. There is no history without psychology. There's no sociology without psychology. There's no psychology without and it just goes on. And so that to me is a given, that at some intellectual cognitive level, that these things are going to help, which is a given. But taking that a step deeper in my pursuit to become a Messi, become a big you know I've learned this very important skill of some kind of a pursuit of excellence, not for the sake of excellence, which then becomes pedantic, but for a higher sake, for the sake of some kind of expression. And in each of these figures that I've idolized, there is a different approach to that self-expression. So where to Messi, it would be just, that nonchalant touch of a ball, he's going past 5 defenders and scoring a goal. Or Beethoven expressing his deepest, darkest feelings through his music and, making that heard. There is always a constant reminder that there is something greater, that one greater that needs to be pursued. And that there are so many ways to do it. But most importantly, why do we pursue that greater through all these things? Is because there is nothing else in the world that is nearly as absolutely exhilarating. And it puts you in this great space of excitement and ease at the same time. And so, aside from the cognitive benefits of knowing multiple skills, I feel that somewhere as a person, you are able to express yourself in so many more ways. Every movement is an expression of you in some way. And being able to express yourself in these great many ways propels you to know yourself better. And that is the question of all there ever is. Know thyself. And I'm perhaps rambling a little bit, but what I'm trying to convey is not so much an idea, but this ease and joy that I feel in my expressing myself, however I do. And that is what I seek to share with you somehow today.
Wonderful, thank you. That's basically the way of self-finding. Whenever we feel that we are at ease and we are doing amazing things, many things, and we are always at ease, we are never caught by these things, we are never cornered by them, we are never determined by what we do. We are free in doing it and discovering ourselves and the world. This is the way to go, the way of self-discovery, where the activities become the means of self-education, where you learn about yourself more and more. And that ease, I think what you are referring to, is the main feature or characteristic of the right path. Whenever you get the delight from what you do, this is the indication of the true movement of consciousness. If the delight is not coming immediately from what you do, then something is wrong. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Aryan. It is wonderful. I also know that you're studying Sanskrit and you studied Gita by heart, and you want to read more texts, Vedas and Upanishads. Even you compose your own poetry in Sanskrit. What is your interest in Sanskrit? Why Sanskrit?
So many reasons. So many. I think firstly is I believe that what the Sanskrit texts hold is not an intellectual understanding of the world as much as it is. An intellectual understanding like you would find in Ludwig Wittgenstein or in a Bertrand Russell. It's a very sort of logically sound way of looking at the world, which is great and which is very inspiring and beautiful in its own right. But I believe what these texts hold is a direct experience of the absolute. And maybe I'm sounding vicarious here, but when I, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, it's almost as I'm there and I'm seeing this great truth that is happening in front of me. And it is that experience that I may somehow vicariously pursue this experience that these great rishis had. And that I may somehow, through a touch of that vicarious experience, move to something more concrete in my understanding of how our world is, which really inspires me. Which is the same interest that I would have in a great story. They serve the same function invitation for me to show you a truth, not as as sort of a processed extension of reality, but just as an experience, plain and simple, out there for you to see and absorb and take what you will. That is the first reason that Sanskrit is so inspiring to me. But secondly, that I think, and we talk about this in our classes sometimes, is that it's so mechanically beautiful. The it's like if you were to open a car and or a giant machine and see the big all the parts working, and it's you can take every part out and every word can be made into another this one step back etymologically and then another step back etymologically and going back. And I think somewhere for me that interest in Sanskrit is that to me it's like watching the development of a language frozen in time somehow. Is that from this root, which is this very, like a dha, dhi, very simple sound that perhaps our great ancestors tens of thousands of years ago learned how to make. And they felt something when they made dha or dhi, which infused meaning in it. And tracing it, it's like time frozen in space in front of you, watching that simple root change and inflect again and trace its inflections all the way to this complex web of meaning that is generated at the end of it. That is so profound because it's not just meaning at that one level, but at all the levels that came before it. And so for me, I think it's a lot like a little child trying to make Lego. It's the joy is as simple as that. It's just taking things apart, putting them together, seeing how it all works.
You introduced this concept of Lego to Sanskrit kind of Sandhi system, and it was very nice. So it's a new Lego, new combination, a new possibility, new structure, which appears every time in a new manner because words, when they meet, they change. And that flow, that flexibility, that clarity with the flexibility at the same time. Of course, it's very fascinating.
And somewhere also, I feel that these structures are very real. That maybe this structure is real on this level, but those structures are real on another level. Or great music is very structural. It's almost architectural at some level. And being able to break it apart and put it back again is something that is exciting to me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful exposition. Enjoying it thoroughly, being a student of Sanskrit myself for many years, I can sense it also, that beauty of Sanskrit, that which attracts me, and also clarity of thinking and clarity of the mind, and structure and flexibility at the same time. Beautiful. I would wish that everybody would find this meaning in Sanskrit and would study Sanskrit language and literature. Yes, beautiful. Thank you. I also hear that you study many things on Coursera and you're looking for new ways of or new subjects. What is your interest in philosophy, for example? I mean, empiricists or in the Western philosophy. Okay, in Indian philosophy, I understand your interest, but what about Western philosophy?
It's very much like another movie. It's just a whole story of thought. And these are human beings at the very finest, intellectually, mystically, trying to see what I see every day in front of me, trying to process that and express it.
It's like another movie, you say.
It really is. I don't see any difference between reading the story of philosophy, let's say, or watching the next Batman movie. Although those may be at very different levels, but they are in some essence very similar. And it is this need to see how other great minds saw what I see every day and what they made of it. And somewhere, when people tell me that, oh, we are small parts in the universe and we are a tiny speck of dust in the galaxy, and I can't help indulging the thought that maybe this whole galaxy, this whole universe, all the levels of it, was somewhere made also for me to sit here and look at the stars and make what I do of them and to find myself in them.
Because they're also part of this conscious enterprise, yes? Enterprise of the spirit. And since we are also representatives of this cosmos, we have that sense of affinity or oneness with it. So it's not just, it's another movie, yes? It's another exposition of consciousness, yes? The same philosophy or beautiful. Thank you, Aryan. I think, yes, we took all our time and because it's so fascinating to talk to you. And of course, Gitanjali. Gitanjali, the last question to you, Aryan, I can't, what are your most, how to say, how to put it, deep or important or some kind of bright memories from your childhood?
There are many.
Well, some of them, just one, and two.
Perhaps you two or three of the most definitive ones that maybe capture parts of others in them as well. Definitely getting up in the morning, watching mom read, and then talking about this, these great things and these streams of consciousness and the higher mind and the intuitive mind and what they can do and the super mind. And that made me really happy as a child. But also, I think this time when we were in Universal Studios in Singapore on a family holiday, and I really wanted this, I don't even know what it is now, but this small ball that glittered with light when you threw it on the ground. And I really wanted it. And I didn't tell mom. I didn't think we would have the time to buy it. So I walked on. I was sulking a little bit because I really wanted that ball. I was perhaps 9, 10 years old. And mom meets me at the next corner. She asked me to pose for a photograph. And boys don't like to pose for photographs. So I didn't pose. And then from somewhere, she pulls out this exact ball that I wanted to buy. And I didn't even tell her. But she knew. And to me, what it did was more than just mom, more than what, feeling secure with her. It gave me a sense of security that the world would take care of me if I just let it. And that's something that hasn't left me yet. I hope it never does.
Yeah, yes. Please keep this kind of faith, this belief, because it's very important. As Krishna says in the Gita, what belief man has, that he becomes. So if you believe in it, it will be your world. If you start stopping believing in it, of course, it will change.
Also so when I was a kid, we went to the beach. And, I saw the beach. And I said, Mom, when I grow up, can you buy me the beach? Yeah. And Mom said, yeah, sure. Yes, we can buy you the beach. We went to the mountains. Mom, when I grow up, can you buy me the mountains? Of course we can buy it. And so I grew up with this such sense of satiation, that everything was there for me to partake also. And that it was conversely my responsibility to make sure that others could partake in that joy like I did as well. I couldn't stop myself from adding this.
Sure. Everything is possible, yes. So your mom was behaving as if she was the universal mother. You said, I want the beach. She says, yes, you will have the beach. Don't worry. I want the mountains. Yes, you will have the mountains, my child. Yes. It's on that level. Yes, a kind of trust in creation, which is meant to be the expression of ourselves. Beautiful. Thank you, Aryan. And now we speak with Gitanjali. Gitanjali, please give us some ideas about what this integral education at home may be. What would you suggest to people whose children are going to ordinary schools? How to help them to develop this integral personality? Um, do you have some
So,
suggestions?
I have grown up on reading Sri Aurobindo and the Mother from the age of 16. Um, so when Aryan was expected, for instance, I visualized a child in all the aspects, physically, he should be strong and resilient, and emotionally, he should be brave, courageous, beauty, aesthetics, mentally wide, and spiritually, somebody who is like a, co-farer in our journey together. And I wrote it and kept it. And that was the aspiration. And I think the first step is the parents' aspiration, especially the mother's aspiration. And we know it very well as the prenatal education, but I didn't know it in so many technical words, but it seemed like very normal to aspire for the right kind of a child, because we know that the soul is waiting somewhere to see the right kind of a mother to come to. And you aspire, and that kind of makes it happen, the right soul you attract with your aspiration. And then when Aryan was also expected, I would study a lot of Sanskrit. I used to play the violin, and my music teacher would say, you'll have a very musical baby. And I read a lot of Sri Aurobindo. I was very much in the state of calm and happiness. And it was an experiment that I did with Aryan. And it's interesting to see all of these things, something he just naturally takes to, the love for Sanskrit, music, Sri Aurobindo. And the other thing was, from the time he was conceived, there was no television that I watched at all. It was, and until date, for 18 years, we don't have television in the house. So there was, because even if the conscious mind is kind of taking in selective stuff, there is a lot of subconscious intake that happens all the time. So for the mother to be always surrounded, even subconsciously, with higher things and beautiful things was important. And even after Aryan was born, he was never made to sleep in the room where there was a television on. Many people think that the child is sleeping, so how does it matter? So to keep the subconscious also as purified as possible, that is one of the things I would say. And we know it as the prenatal education. So mother says lots of issues and problems are solved if we are a little bit conscious before the child is born. And then after the child is born, I think as a parent, if one has brought a child into the life, then till the child is 14, where Sri Aurobindo says you allow him to go out and experiment, fail, learn, but till 14, that child has to be your center of your world. You cannot just bring a child in the world and then just treat it as a secondary preoccupation. So my work and whatever I was doing, it took a backseat. For those 14 years, it was first around Aryan. So suppose at 8:30 in the night, he says he wants to learn, he feels like carom board. We would go at 9 and pick it up and come, because I believe there is a time when the child is interested, and if you expose him and get him the right tools, he just learns it, and that just builds on each other, those experiences of confidence and of things. So there have been phases when he just wanted to do chess, or he wants to do, and he is a very self-directed learner. He finds out what he wants to learn. He finds YouTube videos or some teacher how to learn it, and just picks up that skill. So, but all I helped do was create that ecosystem where, it was never conditional that only if you do this, you will get this. No, wherever the interest flowed, that was what was made possible. And for instance, at the age of, when he was just 1, we bought this entire Time Life series, the books, and which have audio books and picture books. So when the audio would play, the picture book he would open, and he hadn't learned reading, but he knew when to turn the page. So the auditory, abilities of language, and also this whole art, of expressing in artistically what one is thinking, kind of developed. So a lot of such things I experimented. For instance, he had a small Casio, which he would love to play. So at 5, when he was 5, we bought a big piano, so that it has all the octaves, and he just loved to play it. And the guitars, all various sizes of guitars and Casios, were brought in. But more importantly, I think some of the practical things would be like, I breastfed him for 2 years. And in the first year, it was not even when he was thirsty, when he wanted to drink water. Because many times kids just want to feel secure with the mother. They are not hungry, but they want to just know that there is somebody around. And I think filling the child's life with trust, absolute trust that I am taken care of and the world is a beautiful place, is very, very important for that idealism. And as Aryan was saying, I needn't tell him at 2 that no, this ocean is, government's and we can't buy it. He'll automatically learn it when he's 3 or 4. But at 4, when he's so full of this idealism and when he's wanting that ocean, it's because he loves it. He loves the beauty, the grandeur of it. And it is that grandeur you say yes. When you say yes, I will buy it for you, you are saying that you can explore this grandeur, this grandeur and this vastness. You can have it. So these are some of the things that reality need not be brought into their lives before it is necessary. They will anyway, reality will hit them. So to the extent possible, create a fairy tale life around them of beauty, of idealism, and the reality will take care of itself. And the other very important thing was to never child-proof anything that you tell your child, not even the house, just as is. He or she, every child learns to adjust to the world as is. Even when they ask questions, the parents should say the highest they know without child-proofing either the idea or the words. So when I would read, as you said, synthesis, he would ask what is lower knowledge and higher knowledge. I would say lower knowledge is knowledge of the world and higher knowledge is of the one who has created the world, So it is a difficult idea, but you just tell it to the child and you would see after that he's thinking, he's trying to make sense of it. And we need not kind of make it very easy or simplify it, because children are smarter than we think they are actually. And also some other practical things like introducing as many languages before the age of 5. The mind is very ready to pick up a lot of things, and identify that your child is very creative. For instance, like as you said, the first piece he wrote was, he called it for Mother, after Beethoven's Fiorelis. And I found that when he would go to Lambda or something where you get high marks if you exactly produce the piece, but he would like to improvise it in his own way. Now, a mother or a parent can kill the love for music by not allowing him to be creative, but asking him to just follow the piece and, score high marks in Lambda. But for me, it was not important that, because he was more creative and he could create pieces, he could compose, that is what was encouraged, while telling him that it is also important to learn the structure. It is also important to learn a piece well. So just flowing with the child, just understanding what interests him, making it available. And without doing much, you will find they are very, very self-directed learners. They're very occupied with finer things. And like at 5, when he was full of energy, many parents find it very easy to make the child sit in front of the TV because it is, very easy. But then we found for him a karate teacher, and every day for an hour and a half when he would work out, on one hand he learned a skill, on the other hand the energies were channelized into very harmonious ways. And to make it inspiring, I was always doing everything with him, because I think we can't be sleeping till 7 and ask the child to go for a run at 5. It just doesn't happen. We can't be sitting into the TV and tell them don't watch TV. And even if you don't tell them, but if you're doing it, they start doing. As somebody has said, don't worry that your children are not listening to you, because they are watching you. So as a parent, just like as a teacher, one has to be a sadhak first. One has to be a sadhak first, because we are placing too much importance on schools and how schools should bring up children. But in school, they're just for 6 hours, let's say, and that is 25% of the time. The rest, 18 hours, they are at home with their parents. So that is the whole Gurukul system, where they're observing you, they're observing the parents, they're learning the non-verbal cues. And I always say that you can be a very great, you can be very great in your profession and all of that, but your real test comes when you are respected and loved by your children, because they see through you. You can fake all kinds of identities with the world outside, but the true test of a person is if he's loved and respected by his own child, because there you are transparently. And so just being, and it is not just to be an example. I think even as parents, as human beings, we should all be involved in lifelong progress and doing something meaningful. And the children just learn to be that.
Yes, to learn by example is the most effective way of educating. So children are not really looking of. They don't need instructions only. They want to see how you react in the situation, what you would do, and that is for them much more impressive. For everyone, actually, not only for children, for adults the same way. Why we are watching movies, why movies are interesting for us. We want to see the reactions on certain events, how a person reacts when the difficulty comes, when there is a pleasure comes, what would be his reaction, what would be his perception, how he would behave, what it would do to him. And that is actually creating this particular interest in life, that infinite enjoyment in life, because there we can manifest these profound qualities of the soul, such as sincerity, humility, and so on, gratitude. There we would have the fulfillment of life, because in those moments, in those difficult moments, these are the challenges. And of course, if parents behave in a way which is conducive to the development of these qualities in children, of course, this is the best way to educate children. That's why, as you rightly said, in Gurukulas, the Shishyas, the students, had to live with gurus, and not because they had to help them in the house, but because they had to observe how Guru behaves, what he does, how he reacts, and that was part of the education. Absolutely.
So, as I said, very important is prenatal education, very conscious conception, and then when the child is in the womb of the mother, the initial years till 5, and bringing them right up to 14. That is all. After 14, one has to let them be, because they will learn if this has been done right. But unfortunately, what happens today's world is that just conception happens accidentally. There is no knowledge of prenatal, and then the child is born. It is not so much looked after. There is no much of conscious parenting. But the moment the child is 14, all kinds of parental pressures of become an engineer or doctor, when you should be leaving the child free at 14. Because if you've done your job well as a parent till 14, he will choose the right things. He will do what is right. And even if he doesn't, he will learn from failures. So one more thing for parents is to just create the ecosystem of growth and learning, and then allow them to choose.
And also you were mentioning beauty, the aesthetic beauty, beautiful music in the house, constant, never vulgarity, never TV, no news, no distracted news, constantly bringing fear and anxiety and uncertainty. And yes, these are the elements which have to be created at home.
Because Mother and Sri Aurobindo have given this beautiful framework of physical, emotional, mental, psychic, and spiritual education. So we used to divide our day, like there is 2 hours for physical development, you know, and rest of the time to be conscious, like eating consciously and so on. Then emotional development through music, through, which, because when the vital being is refined, then you take care of so many problems of youth rebellion and all of that. And then mental, learning as many subjects. And spiritually also finding your inner swadharma, yourself, and expressing it. So if all of these are done, then...
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. There are questions here. Should we go through them one by one? Amrita asks, Aryan, how to motivate the new generation to take an interest in self-development? How would you motivate them?
I am the new generation, so I can't. I can tell you what motivates me. Is the closest I can answer that, because I'm not qualified, I think. Yeah, but I'll try. I believe, I saw this very interesting quote by Steve Jobs, where he says, the moment you realize that the world was created by people not very much smarter than you are, and that in some ways it can be changed by you, that you needn't live within the matrix that has been created for you, then everything that you do is in an effort to express yourself and to project yourself upon that vast canvas. And then what happens is that these skills become the tools to do that. And because you are motivated to project upon that vast canvas, because that's the only thing that can bring you true joy, you pick up whatever else you need to pick up in order to do that. And that's what keeps you going.
Wonderful, beautiful. I didn't expect this answer. It's a very creative answer. Yeah, nice. There's another question here. How can working mothers provide this kind of education and care till 14?
So
Oh, you have to switch off one audio. You have to switch off.
I was a working mother, and there was times when I was traveling for 10 days in a month, but Aryan knew that I have to go for work, and he knew that even if I finish at 8, I will take the 10 o'clock flight and come back. So I think it is a good thing if there's a working mother, because boys especially, and even girls, they learn after seeing a working mother. The boys learn how to treat a woman who's working and to respect it, and the girls learn how to become when you grow up. So if one does it right, if one is not in it for the rat race or for the ego of wanting to attain some promotion and this, but if you're working because you love something, then you actually transmit and transfer that love for work to your child. And you can accommodate them in as much as you do. You can be a part of their life. You can bring them a part of your life. There have been many meetings that I've done in the car when I've gone to pick him up with a client sitting next to me, because I have to pick him up from school. And I think these are very fine life lessons that the children learn of how one can work and balance life, and children learn much more. But as I said, it is important how one defines work. If one is in a rat race, or one is in it for one's fame and money and all of that, that is not what children will respect. But if one genuinely loves what one is doing, and then it automatically gets balanced, actually.
So basically what you say is one has to create the trust and the conditions, even very difficult conditions of life where you have to work and have very little time, do not matter, because that trust and harmonious relations, trust relations with your children is everything. Yeah, they will learn through hardships the best way also. Yeah, it's not that
And here I would like to add one more thing, is that what helped me was my mother and my parents staying with us. And that is a beautiful thing again, children growing up with grandparents. That is how it was in India, but somehow now with more and more nuclear families, it's neither helping the children if the parents are working, or neither allowing the grandparents to contribute to their lives and be happy. So I think that is something we are losing, which we need to think about.
There is one more question here to Gitanjali. I congratulate your opinion. I would like to ask you a question. What is the meaning of motivation in the integral yoga, and what are you doing for to motivate your children when they are learning music or Sanskrit? How do you motivate them?
So, as per integral yoga, the concept of Mahasaraswati, excellence and perfection in works. So that is the motivation. So once there is a worldview formed, like in our case, because we were Mother and Sri Aurobindo's students, the worldview was evolution of consciousness is the purpose of life. And the evolution of consciousness is every day growing to become better than what one was yesterday. So one is not competing with anybody outside. One is just competing with what one was yesterday and doing today being better. So that's all. So one is free from all this, comparison, all this competition. One's compass is within, and the anchor is within. So motivation in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, integral yoga, is constant pursuit of excellence. And as Aryan said, that gives rise to self-existent delight. It is not dependent on whether the world is applauding at you, whether you are getting money for what you're doing. It is the joy that you extract when you're on the path of progress. And actually that keeps you going. And that is what we discussed with Aryan. I said, when you choose a profession, just have this one, answer this one question, that whether I get money or not, whether I'm famous or not, will I still want to get up in the morning and do that very thing? Then that is your career. Because it has the axis of control is not outside, it is within. And that is how a profession has to be chosen, not because this is the industry today doing well and we should, therefore study it, because that industry in 10 years may be extinct. Yes. Technology may have moved, and that is why we have so many 45-year-olds in midlife crisis, because the choices were made based on external rewards. So shifting the loci inward is the answer. The motivation is to become better than yesterday.
There was previously we had first webinar on integral education with Manoj and Arul Dev, and there it's interesting, he brought this idea of create your own profession. Why do you have to choose profession? Make your own profession, which is not available yet. It should fit very well for Aryan, I think. He's already creating his profession.
I think for most of us, because in the next 20 years, they say 60% of the current jobs as we know them are going to go away. So we have to combine all that we have been bestowed with, our skills, and make our own path and our own profession.
Okay, thank you for your beautiful exposition. I'm very, very happy to meet you both here, and especially Aryan. It's such a pleasure to hear you talk, your ideas, your freedom in approaching this life and possibilities of the future. So thank you, Aryanji. All the best, and see you in New York maybe one day, coming to study drama and philosophy. And thank you, Gitanjali, for this beautiful, deep look into the home education, how we have to create this educational environment for children, and be part of it. This is very important. This unending education concept where we are constantly growing together with our children. They are growing with us, we are growing with them, they are our teachers, we are their facilitators. It is a constant interactive growth of consciousness, and that generates and creates the delight of existence. Thank you. Namaste.